from this computer. Right. So welcome everyone to the November IGRI research seminar. So for those of you who may not be familiar with me, my name is Devor Mondam. I am the center coordinator for the Center for Policy Design and Governance at Syracuse University. In that capacity, I also function as the coordinator for the IGRI. So I can manage and oversee a lot of all the kind of events and initiatives associated with the IGRI. And so I'm leading today's seminar in part because Uta had a conflict, but then moving forward in the future, I will be overseeing these. So today's presenter for our seminar is Mazaher Kianpour. So Mazaher Kianpour is a university lecturer in the Department of Information Security and Communication Technology at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. His research lies in the intersection of economics and information security with a socio-technical perspective, and he's co-written numerous publications on cybersecurity matters. His presentation today will focus on the institutional design of EU cyber incidents and crisis response as a complex public good. So I yield the floor to you.
Thank you very much, David, for the kind introduction. If you could give me access for sharing my screen, then I
see.
Can start sharing.
All right. There you go. Should have it now.
Yeah, I have it. Okay, is it in presentation mode or do you see that presentation now?
Let's see. It is not in the presentation mode. Still in the, there we go.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Mazaher Kianpour, and I appreciate your interest in this topic. The topic of the presentation is analysis of institutional design of EU cyber incidents and crisis management as a complex public good. This research was conducted by in collaboration with Christopher Franz. Is here. I'm sure that most of you know him, and he will also help me to answer your question regarding to IG and methodology of this research. Okay, the plan for today is going through this agenda. First, there will be some terminologies and motivation of the research. Then I will highlight the research questions that we were trying to answer in this research. And then we'll discuss how we operationalize institutional grammar 2.0. And then we will have an overview of results. And finally, there will be a discussion of insights and the future work for this research. But let's start with some terminologies. Okay, the most important term that we should talk about first is cybersecurity. There are different definitions for this word, and in different studies, it has been defined differently. But now we have relied and we have used on the definition that was provided by Matt Bishop, one of the well-known scholars in this field. Matt Bishop defines cybersecurity as a computing-based discipline involving technology, people, information, and processes to enable a short operation. He also adds that cybersecurity involves the creation, operation, analysis, and testing of secure computer systems. And he also knows that cybersecurity acknowledges in this definition that cybersecurity is an interdisciplinary course of study that includes law, policy, human factors, and risk management in the context of adversaries. Why we have chosen this cybersecurity and why we are interested in this definition. It is because that it's near to our perspective towards cybersecurity, because in our perspective, cybersecurity is not just technology. And as you can see in this definition, it's also mentioned that it involves people, information, and processes. It also acknowledges that cybersecurity is a kind of interdisciplinary course of study. So the interdisciplinarity of this field has been acknowledged in this definition. It is, as I said, it is near to our perspective towards cybersecurity. In that definition, you found some functions, you found some services that was creation, analysis of secure systems, but it is not limited to that. ENISA, one of the agencies in EU, has outlined some of the most important cybersecurity functions. As you can see in this figure, there are 18 functions that this agency has identified. And as it is written in the documentation, it is not just limited to these functions, and this list may also be extended in the future. But there are different functions: training, situational awareness, R&D, investigation, and for us and for this research, we are interested in incident handling, response, and recovery. That I also will discuss the terms regarding this function. The first term regarding this function, that is incident handling, response, and recovery, is cyber incidents. What are cyber incidents? Based on the definition that also is provided by ENISA, cyber incident is a disruption of IT services where the expected availability of the service disappears completely or in part. It can also be an unlawful publication, obtaining or modification of information stored on IT services. So based on this definition, it is expected, it endangers the organization, the information of the organization, and it exposes this information to the adversaries. But what is cyber crisis? Because we are also interested in cyber crisis, and recently in this regarding how digital ecosystems are expanding all around the world, cyber crises are also becoming more important. Cyber crises are also defined as a normal and unstable situation that threatens an organization's strategic objective, reputation, or viability. In this definition, we just have organizations, but it's not limited to organizations. As I can say, as we will discuss in the next slide, it also threatens nations and international agencies and international institutions. So it's not just individual organizations or individual businesses, small businesses, but also it threatens nations and supranational institutions. So these were some terms that we should have talked about before we go into the detail of the research. And now here, as we're going to focus on crisis management and incident management, let's also have an overview on the crisis escalation in the EU. This figure also is from ENISA report. ENISA defines crisis management as a process of institutional and organizational design and of the role and actions of decision makers within a larger constructs. Our focus for this research is crisis at the EU level. As you can see, Just a quick question. Do you see the pointer or? Okay, as you can see here, we can have crisis at the organizational level, we can have crisis at the national level, and can have crisis at the European level. So these crises, an example for the crisis at the organizational levels can be Norsk Hydro in Norway, and one of the main bodies that can be active in handling that crisis can be the Security Operations Center at Norsk Hydro. National crisis can be also the organizational crisis can also be escalated to the national crisis. Then different actors will be involved. For example, CSIRTs, national CSIRTs, and competent authorities. When some of the crisis escalates to the European level, to the union level, other agencies and other actors will be involved. For example, in this case, we have some of them: ENISA, CSIRT Network, EC3, or EU Commission. So depending on the level of the crisis, different actors will be involved, and different actors will cooperate or will share information. Okay, the final term that we need to have a definition for that, is polycentricity. And now later we say that why polycentricity. So polycentric governance system refers to structural arrangements of governments that have multiple and overlapping semi-autonomous centers of authority or decision-making within a shared system of rule. This definition is provided by Ostrom. And now we are going to talk about why we are interested in polycentric governance structure. This kind of type of governance structure has been used by Shackelford. Then he also argues that when we are going to treat cybersecurity as a public good, polycentric governance structure can be used to regulate cybersecurity, and it's one of the most effective kind of governance structure. It also argues, Shackelford also argues that under polycentric governance, agents organize themselves to better accomplish their common goals, which in case of cybersecurity is security of the network system, computer systems, and any kind of system that is connected to the cyber domain. So the other reason that we are interested in polycentric governance structure is our previous study that the result of this study shows that the agents will perform well under polycentric governance structure when cybersecurity is a public good. Everybody is contributing to provide these the cybersecurity services. The result also shows that out of this structure, persistent behavior emerges, and the system, the environment that the agents are operating within and interacting with each other become a resilient environment. Here I have some of the results here. As you can see in this diagram, agents that have that are the average contribution of the agents increases as time passes, and here also in this diagram also shows that agents with the competitive behavior also increase their contribution toward providing cybersecurity as a public good. Also here in this diagrams, also you can see that the average resource of the agents is more when they are having competitive and cooperative behavior rather than the individualistic behavior. And it shows that the system becomes more resilient when they have when the agents have competitive and cooperative behavior. So in this agent-based model, the governance structure is polycentric, and they are autonomous. Agents are autonomous, and but they also have overlap when it comes to decision making. So that kind of structure has been implemented in this agent-based model, and we see that it makes the environment resilient and also increases the average of contribution of the agents. But in the literature of the polycentricity also, we have different benefits. It has been discussed with different scholars and researchers. Some of them are here. For example, one of the benefits of polycentric is that this kind of governance recognizes the capabilities of dependent and independent actors to govern themselves. There are also some of them are, for example, here it ensures polycentric governance ensures balance between decision-making centers so as to prevent dominance of certain actors. The one that is important within the context of cybersecurity is the last one, that is polycentric governance makes resilience of pattern, makes the environment resilient to some of the shocks and changing circumstances that it happens when it comes to cybersecurity and digital ecosystems. We have different cyber attacks, and also not just the cyber attacks, but also new technologies also make shock, and they cause some changes in the environment. So this benefit is very important for cybersecurity area. So that was kind of some terminologies and motivation for this research. But now the research questions of this research are, the first one is, to what extent do European Union cybersecurity policies establish a polycentric governance structure? The second research question is that how is compliance incentivized in this institutional arrangement? So for the first research question, we're interested to know that is this governance structure is this governance structure established in the EU or not? And for the second one is that we're interested to know how is compliance incentivized in this institutional arrangement, and to what extent are compliance mechanisms centralized or decentralized at the EU level. To answer these research questions, we have analyzed the major cybersecurity policies that are adopted in the EU. There are different cybersecurity policies, as you can see this in this table. We have EU cybersecurity strategy that was enforced since 2020. It is kind of some kind of very abstract one. That is why we have not used the statements in this specific policy. But the rest of them that are NIST Directive, Cybersecurity Act, Blueprint, and Joint Cyber Unit, we have analyzed the other these four. So except EU cybersecurity strategy, we analyzed the rest. You can see here, for example, NIST Directive was enforced come to force since 2008. The 16 Cybersecurity Act 2019, and the newest one is the Joint Cyber Unit that was published 2021. So these are the cybersecurities that we have analyzed in order to answer the research questions. But to answer the first research question, we also relied on the literature of the polycentricity, polycentric governance structure, that some of the structural characteristics, institutional essentials, and prerequisites of a polycentric system has been identified in the literature. For this research, for this presentation, I just talk about the structural characteristics because there's no time to go through all of these, but we will discuss the structural characteristics, which are multiplicity of decision-making authorities, autonomous decision-making, common and shared goals, overarching shared system of rules. And for the essentials and prerequisites, hopefully the paper will be published, and you can read more about these also in the paper. But how we used institutional grammar 2.0 in order to answer these questions? As you can see here, there is an example of a regulative statement. We coded 62 statements from these 4 cybersecurity policies that I showed you in the previous slides. So 62 statements. From these 62 statements, we extracted 151 regulative statements and constitutive statements. That I will show you some of them in the next slides. So here is an example of regulative statements. As you may know, regulative statements describe or prescribe specific activity for actors within particular constraints, and essentially convey the institutions that govern particular actors' behavior. There are some required components. There are some sufficient components for this. Here is one of the required components is attributes. That is an individual or corporate actor whose behavior is described or constrained as a part of the statement. The other required component is aim. Aim is an action associated with the actor. That in this example, the aim is provide. The attribute is ENISA, and finally the other required component is the statement context, which in IG 2.0, the context component distinguishes between 2 distinct forms of context. Conditions under which a particular statement applies are activation conditions, that in this case is in the case of cyber incidents, and qualification of activities in execution are also referred to as execution constraint, that in this case is without unduly delay. The rest of the components that you can see here, deontics and direct object, are known as sufficient components that are that you may find in regulative statements. In this slide, also you see as a kind of 2 statements, regulative statement and constitutive statements. As you can see, the we have also encoded using this kind of system that you may find in codebook of IG 2.0. And for the constitutive statements, also there are again required components like constituted entity, and there are also some sufficient components like model and other components. So as I said, we also from the encoded statements, we have both regulative statements and constitutive statements. But IG features, these two types of statements are not the only IG features that we have used for this research. We also have used semantic annotations and context taxonomies that I will discuss more, that how we use, for example, context taxonomies to answer the research question. So now let's go through this table for the structural characteristics and see how IG helped us, for example, to realize if these characteristics have been in the cybersecurity policies or not. For the first one, that was multiplicity of decision-making authorities. You can see here that this figure shows the encoded regulative statements that are 116 statements. You can see here that we have different actors. And here, for example, actors in the EU, and you can also see the properties of these actors that here are known as attributes based on the IG terminology. All actors in the EU, relevant actors in the EU, and you can also here see the deontics that found in these statements. Some of the statements have deontics, some of them do not. For example, in the here cert EU, they don't have some of the statements for that have this attribute, they do not have deontics, so it's black under blank. And the other ones that have deontics like may, could, must, shall, should, you can see here, and you can also see the numbers here. This is the second part of the data, and as you can see, ENISA and member states are also two actors that have the most statements with deontics in compared to the other actors from the analyzed statements. These two also in this figure that shows the frequency of permissive and imperative deontics in regulative statements also have the highest number of permissive and imperative statements. But what are these permissive and imperative statements? For these, we followed the English style guide published by the European Commission. Following this guideline, we divided deontics into two categories, imperative and permissive. So, for example, permissive deontics are kind of like may and could, and imperative deontics are must, shall, and should. And as you can see here, ENISA and member states have the highest number of imperative statements, while CERTs and CERT EU have the highest number of permissive statements. The statements that do not have deontics are considered as a strategy in IG terms. So, for example, CERT EU and CCERTs are the only actors that have statements that we considered as strategic. So that also shows the frequency of permissive and imperative statements in the analyzed analyzed policies. In this figure, you can see also the other network relationship between actors and rules. And the thickness of the circles shows the number of statements that had most, for example, ENISA, as you can see, is thicker than other actors here. It shows that more statements were related to ENISA. Either ENISA were the actor of them or ENISA was the object of these statements. For example, and also edges with this label on them also shows that, for example, member states may invite ENISA, but the aim is not, this invitation based on the statement could be for coordination or collaboration. So there are different rules, and this figure shows how they are related to each other based on which rules and which deontic and aim they are related, these actors, to each other. The second structural characteristics for polycentric governance was autonomous decision-making. In order to see that if this characteristics has been established in the EU, would be relied on discretion that are reflected in activation conditions. This discretion shows that the freedom to decide what should be done in a particular situation. For example, CERT EU and CCERT use their discretion in cooperation or exchanging information when necessary. Or as you can see here, CCERTs may refuse to coordinate if there is a risk of prejudice to the investigation of the incident. So using this activation condition, we identified whether the agents are free to act independently or they have this kind of ability to make the decision autonomously or not. That this these activation conditions shows that they have, to some extent, they have this autonomous decision-making and they can act freely and independently. The other structural characteristics was common or shared goal. Shared goals are collective aspiration of actors, and we have used execution constraints with aspirational context characterization in order to identify if there has been such shared goals or not. IG 2.0 enables us to identify these goals based on this inspection of the context component. As you can see also in this table, we have ENISA. For example, ENISA should cooperate in order to contribute to reducing dependence on cybersecurity products, or ENISA must support to build cybersecurity resilience or cyber resilience at the EU level. So this aspirational context also has been used to identify if there has been a shared goal or a common goal of among the agents and actors or not. This also shows that the shared goal mostly has been resilience and also has been security of the environment. So that was the first research question, and the second research question was how is compliance incentivized in this institutional arrangement? To answer this research question, we also analyzed different statements. For example, here you can find some of these relevant statements. Here, for example, one of them is member states shall lay down the rules on penalties as applicable to infringement of national provisions adopted pursuant to this directive. While these statements have determined who is eligible to be subject of the rule, those specific rules are set on the operational level, these statements delegate the definition of such rules to member states without further qualifying and underlying enforcement regime that sponsors a potential reason for the limited effect of this provision up to this date, because some of these statements and some of these policies are going to be revised. So up to this date, these limitations have been identified through our analysis. The results in general, because I just presented some of the results here in this presentation, the results of our study revealed that European Union has established the polycentric governance structure in order to manage cyber incidents and cyber crisis, and also the results showed that ENISA and member states are the core of this function, the core actors of this function, but ENISA is more like a coordinated facility with discretion but limited authority. And also, as a result of kind of the second research question, we found out that delegation of sanction design potentially is counterproductive, and it's more like at the collective level, and it's not operationalized to the individual actors, which are member states or CSIRTs. For the future direction of this research, we are going to have kind of a constellation of quantitative and qualitative accounts of polycentricity. There are also various quantitative approaches in order to identify whether a kind of governance structure is polycentric or not. We are going to use those quantitative approaches as well in order to answer the first research question, specifically the first research question. In the future, we are interested to validate against some observed cases, analyze some previous cyber incidents or cyber crises, and also we are interested to compare our results with to see if the new revisions of the cybersecurity policies has, for example, in case of punishments, they have addressed the shortcomings that were identified in this research or not. In the focus of this research has been on incident management, but as you saw that incident management and cybersecurity and cyber crisis management is not the only function in cybersecurity. We're interested to expand our scope to study other cybersecurity management aspects like situational awareness, like threat intelligence sharing, and other functions, cybersecurity functions that has been identified by ENISA. So with this conclusion, I'm ready to answer to your questions. And yeah, I'm ready to answer the questions if there's any question.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Now we open up the floor to questions. Saba, go ahead.
Thank you, Mazaher, for your presentation. I guess one question I have is, what about the governance structure? Do you think accords with your understanding of the domain? In other words, you observe this governance structure through the coding. I mean, how do you think that maps to your expectations about governance within this particular domain?
About expectation, we expected that European Union has implemented this kind of governance structure, because in very different documents you may found that they have addressed this type of governance structure, but there were no kind of study that like us, that they have worked on it to see that if in reality has been established or not, that this study was aimed for to answer that question. So we expected in the beginning that it is polycentric in the EU, but the result also showed that, yes, that's true.
Great, thank you.
All right, I saw Adela next.
Hi, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I thought it was interesting, and to see the IG 2.0 used. I'm still sort of caught in between 1.0 and 2.0, because I have a lot of coding done in 1.0, but now I'm trying to code in 2.0, and so to see the 2.0 in full use and used was interesting to me. And I don't know that I guess I sort of have a question at the end of my comment. I thought it was interesting how you're using the execution constraints and the activation, or not constraints, the activation conditions and the execution conditions. And what really struck me there, at least with the execution conditions, is thinking about these as revealing the goals of actors. And I hadn't thought about that before. And I think that's really interesting. And so you've given me some ideas of how to pursue some work with my own coding on that front, because that really comes in close then to like policy design literature and policy process literature, to think of the execution conditions as revealing goals. Still not a question, but sort of a question. There's and I'll put it in the chat. There's a brand new book, or relatively new, 2021, of legal design for social ecological resilience, in which Brita Bowman focuses on the EU and examines how the different legal or different laws in the EU, the extent to which they create polycentric systems, and then the extent to which they should be robust, given our understanding of polycentric systems. And so your work reminded me of that. And I'll put the full citation in the chat, and maybe you would find that useful.
Thank you. Yes.
Anyone else? Chris, go ahead.
Mazaher, thank you very much for the presentation, for iterating. A question, just an open question too. In the meantime, have you, I mean, remember we have discussed this and debated this a bit. Have you in the meantime kind of gotten intuition what the distribution of con versus rec means in that particular I mean, we now know it exists, we have seen it, but is there any intuition that has you know, you have developed perhaps in you know, while looking or reiterating over this your work as part of your, you know, finalization of your studies? Any intuitions or
Sorry, distribution of what?
Sorry, I should have been more explicit. Constitutive statements versus regulative statements in the study that you report, that you identify, and the question that you know is puzzling or remains puzzling is as to whether this is a stylistic, you know, effect or a stylistic byproduct in a way, or does it have any sort of signaling meaning that's embedded in there, given the nature of the directive or the policy directive in this case? But no is a valid answer. I'm just asking, it was more like a follow-up on the long-standing discussion that we had, or ongoing discussion.
Yeah. So about the regulative statements and constitutive statements, in the analyzed cybersecurity policies, most of them were regulative statements, and as you can also see, the encoded statement that we had, 116 were regulative statements and just 35 were constitutive statements, because of and I think it's because of the nature of the cybersecurity policies, because they are going to more be direct and imperative for the actors that are involved in this kind of area, and constitutive policies have more like kind of declarative nature, that you may find it in more constitutive statements in cybersecurity strategy. So, but in the analyzed policies that we had, we found more regulative statements.
Okay, that sounds like a sensible direction. So that the guidance is there, where there's more instruction you expect or regulative, and where's more declaration. Well, declaration and definition, you would of course come with constitutive statements primarily, or perhaps, I mean, the other aspect is that a task could just be defined, but the actor who is responsible may just not be defined. This may also be a possible way of kind of looking forward in terms of how a policy actually is implemented and ultimately operationalized, especially if the system is potentially actually polycentric, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, I think I saw a hand there.
Yeah.
Where am I? Go back to you.
Yeah. I think Lisandro, you had your hand up.
Oh yeah. Hi, my name is Lisandro. I'm a Brazilian researcher, and I found very interesting your polycentric perspective, because I'm looking the data governance in Brazil, the design of the policies here, and the design is all thing, but not polycentric. Is very Estado-centric, so state-centric, sorry for the Portuguese accent. And for me, it was very interesting to look to this perspective. It's not a question, actually, it's just a comment, but it's very interesting to know about your research, and I expect to learn about how to operate the IG 2.0.
Yes. Thank you for your comments.
Anyone else? Yep, Martha?
Yes. First, it's a very, very interesting and enlightening job. And my question, it's more like a doubt. How is that as policy documents cannot have a deontic vocabulary? If I understood correctly, you say that the search EU documents, they were managing mostly strategies instead of constitutive or regulative statements. Well, rules, I'm sorry.
If I understood correctly, your question is about the statements that do not have deontics. Only from these statements, only 4 of them, they do not have deontics. And the rest have deontics, and it's cert EU. So there is no may, could, should, or this sort of verbs in this statement.
Can you tell me what are the documents that you checked, if it's possible?
About what document? Sorry.
The policy documents that you parsed, that you.
Yeah, it is possible to trace back. I can go back through the files and see in which documents it was there.
Okay.
These 4 statements. Yeah, I can send you the documents later because I need to
Thank
go
you so
through the
much.
data.
Okay, I'm going to be
Yeah,
in contact.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a follow-up question to Martha?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Martha, in your question, were you expecting that the nature of the policy would somehow suggest that all statements would have a deontic, all regulative statement, or is it more of a question of, regulative statements in general?
No, I was expecting that the CERT, this authority, coordination authority, could have more teeth, no, like more power to be more assertive at establishing behaviors that should or must be performed instead of may or could be performed.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I really like the way, Mazaher, you organized the statement information along different types of execution constraints and activation conditions. That was the first time I had seen that representation, and I found it to be very effective in thinking about how behavioral constraint or action constraint comes through the condition. And it actually helps you really help drive home the importance of context clauses.
Actually, thank you, because I got the idea from your book.
Oh, I think Chris wrote that part. No, I'm just kidding.
And Christopher, and yeah.
No, I think you should take more credit, Mazaher, because we didn't do it exactly that way in the book. Your way of thinking about this was original and really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, Martha?
Oh, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
How is that you decided to use IG 2.0 instead of other kind of institutional grammar?
Good question. Because Christopher was available. We are in the same.
I expect a better excuse. Let's go. Just okay. Do you have any sense?
But to be honest, because the features that IG 2.0 had are more kind of applicable to this domain, and I could make more benefit out of IG 2.0 and the features that was provided with this version of IG. So that's why we chose this IG 2.0. Yeah, in order to answer the questions.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Chris?
If I may just follow up a time in there. Yeah, I mean, it was, I think that this domain, but also the questions were a distinct example of where the value of IG2 lies, right? So if you want to actually drag out and Adela pointed to this, the purpose or the objectives or the underlying intents of the, writer or whoever designs the policy, then the IG2 brings that along with the context taxonomy in particular, where you can draw out particular features that signal exactly this, right, and not trying to reassemble this downstream in one way or another. I think the other aspect is that Mazaher also used the semantic annotation to put a clearer sense on the kinds of activities that the aims or then constitutive function signals with respect to the policy, right? So which he then categorized, classified, and that's basically also a feature that's particular to the IG2. One aspect that is of course in there, but to be explored further is, again, con versus reg, constitutive versus regulative statements. We have them, they are there as data, but what does it mean? I think there's probably need for extended / comparative study to kind of explore how far this is merely statistic or if there's actually merit to it, so the distinction in this particular policy and or domain, right? So that's to be found out. I mean, the answer for this may be completely different for other domains and applications. So anyway.
We have time for one more question or comment if anyone has it.
So just for Martha, I found the statement. This is the statement. You can find this statement in blueprint 16 and number 16. Yeah. So this is the statement that there were no deontics. You're muted, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Blueprint? I don't understand what is this.
Blueprint. Okay, I can also send the cybersecurity
Link.
the blueprint policy. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So on that note, we will wrap up this seminar. So thank you once again to Mazaher for coming on and for giving your presentation. Thank you to all of you for attending and for your questions and your comments. And we'll see all of you next month. Yeah, Chris.
Thank you very much.
I was just silently clapping. I don't know if that's the
Oh,
context.
okay.
I'm still trying to use all those buttons here, and no one taught me ever how to, so I fail at any opportunity, please.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Lissandra.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Lisa.
Bye.
Bye.
See everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Mazaher.
Thanks, Mazaher.